Hello, welcome to your latest update from the Met Office. A fine Friday for most, albeit rather cold. However, the weather is going to turn uglier as we go through the weekends. Heavy rain, strong winds, and potentially some problems with wintry weather as well. We have amber warnings in force for both snow and ice. I'll have the details of those in just a moment. What's going on? Well, basically, we're seeing weather fronts finally pushing in from the Atlantic and hitting the cold air that's been sitting across the UK for much of this week. That's what's going to create the snow and ice. Before they arrive, though, it is, as I said at the start, a fine Friday for most, generally dry and sunny. There are a few showers across the east, some of those a little bit wintry. Further west, we've got a weather front bringing a lot of cloud and some drizzly rain to parts of Northern Ireland. It's windy here, but it's a bit milder, 7 or 8 degrees. For most parts of the UK, we're really struggling, just 3 to 5 Celsius. It feels cold, but the wind's at least a little bit lighter than they were yesterday. The winds, though, will be picking up as we go through the evening and the cloud continue to thicken in the west. We start to see these weather fronts bring rain to Northern Ireland, but hitting the cold air in western Scotland, some snow is likely here through the early hours, especially over the hills. We'll see rain pushing into the far southwest as well. But elsewhere, again, most places stay dry and clear. Some mist and fog is possible, and there will be, again, a fairly extensive frost. Towns and cities down close to freezing, if not a touch below. In rural areas will be several degrees below freezing. And it's that cold air which mixes with the wet weather coming in from the west. That's when we start to see the problems. Now, the rain could cause some issues, particularly for Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England. We have a yellow warning in force here for the wind and the rain. There could be some localised flooding as that rain turns heavier through the morning in this zone. Still at this stage, late morning, much of the Midlands, eastern England, most of Scotland still dry, but we'll start to see some snow pushing into southwestern parts of Scotland. And then that process continues as the wet weather moves its way slowly eastwards and northwards, hitting that colder air. We'll start to see more snow over northern England and central and southern Scotland, chiefly over the hills. Temperatures really struggling in this zone as it clouds over just 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. Compare and contrast with the southwest, where it's wet and windy, but it is also quite a bit milder. Now, that wet and windy weather will then start to turn more and more wintry, particularly over central and southern parts of Scotland. Heavy snow falling here, and there'll be some snow further south, but it's really in this zone here where we're concerned about ice. We're going to see freezing rain. That's where snow falls out of the sky, it melts through a warmer layer in the atmosphere, and then as it gets down close to the surface, and as soon as it hits the surface, it freezes instantly and creates very, very slippery conditions on the road. So this is through Saturday afternoon, evening and overnight in this zone across northern England up into a good part of central and southern Scotland. The real threat of some very, very icy conditions. The major routes through this zone, parts of the M6, the M62 up through the M74, parts of the M8 as well. And then just to the north of the central belt, that's where we're concerned about heavy snow. So the A9 in particular across Scotland will be treacherous. The snow certainly could cause some power disruption. There could be local communities cut off, and the icy conditions covering these parts of northern England, as I say, southern Scotland, very, very tricky conditions out on the roads. If you're heading out, well, try and get your travelling done before the wet weather arrives. Widely further south and further north, we have a yellow warning in force for snow and ice. So again, we could see some snow down to relatively low levels. And again, the travelling conditions likely to be pretty tricky. This is Saturday evening. We'll start to see the wet weather clearing in the south, but it could still be very icy. The snow continuing for a time over central parts and of Scotland before gradually easing through the early hours of Sunday morning. It stays wet across the Northern Isles. Again, we'll see a frost forming, so again, it could be icy, but perhaps not quite as cold first thing on Sunday morning as Saturday morning. And overall, Sunday's a drier, brighter day, certainly across many eastern areas. It should be fine. Could be a bit misty first thing. There'll be showers in the west, and we could see some more persistent rain pushing into the far southwest later on, but this will be rain. Temperatures will be a little bit higher by Sunday for many, but I don't think it'll feel all that warm, and it could be quite murky, staying quite grey in some places. Look at these temperatures, 4 to 6 or 7. 10 or 11 in the southwest. Those temperatures actually a little bit down on Sunday compared to Saturday's value. So there's plenty going on. There are a number of warnings in force. Please keep up to date with those weather warnings. You can view them for yourself, see whether you're going to be affected by going to the Met Office website. If you download our app, the warnings are on there. And a good way to keep up to date is to follow us on social media.